They were two very similar young women.
She loved kids. She wanted to be a teacher from day one.
She had a degree in early childhood development. She had dreams of opening a daycare one day.
But was a love of children all they shared?
He is very confident, almost cocky, and he had a good job.
He's a wolf in sheep clothing.
And when one of the young women ended up dead, police were soon on the hunt for a killer.
Whoever fired the weapon shot her point blank at very close range.
But was it the two-timing boyfriend?
These motherfuckers think I had something to do with the shit.
Or was it the other woman?
As far as just like this full-out blown romantic love affair, that's not what it was. It really wasn't.
At 8:30 in the evening, when Carla Hughes placed a call to her mother.
She said she'd gone jogging and she'd, been to the park and she was cooling down. And we were talking about our day.
But as Carla spoke to her, the 25-year-old schoolteacher's day was about to take a drastic turn.
She said, "Hold on, Ma." And she said, "This is Keon."
The caller was Keon Pittman, a co-worker of Carla's at Chastain Middle School.
He was the head basketball coach and also a teacher at that school.
And when it came to women, the coach was also a player.
He is a very average-looking guy, but very, very confident in himself. Almost a little cocky.
But on that particular evening, Keon Pittman didn't sound at all confident. He sounded scared. Within moments, Carla Hughes was back on the line with her mother.
She came back, she said, "Oh my God, Ma, somebody's done something to Avis."
Avis was Keon's fiancé.
They had begun dating for over a year and a half. They were set to be married in January.
The wedding would never happen. According to what Keon told Carla, he'd just come home and discovered his would-be wife dead in their garage.
She had been shot multiple times. She had been stabbed. Her throat had been slashed.
I said, if somebody's come and done something to Avis, Keon needs to call the police.
Keon took Linda Hughes' advice, more or less.
Keon Pittman runs to the next door neighbor, screaming, knocking at the door.
The neighbor immediately dialed 911.
911, where's your emergency? Somebody just ran to my door hollering and screaming that somebody needs help.
She didn't realize until her husband opened up the front door to see who was out there that it was Keon.
What's wrong?
Police arrived on the scene minutes later.
They had responded to a call about an individual who had found his fiancée murdered in their home.
But had he done more than just find her? The more police dug into the case, the more they were puzzled by Keon's actions that night. Why would a man with a cell phone ask the neighbors to call 911?
That's quite unusual, because if this is someone that you love that's carrying your child, quite naturally, you're going to just dial 911.
Hello, I'm Carla Hughes, and I'm from Greenville, Mississippi.
Growing up in Mississippi, Carla Hughes' childhood was an unbroken string of successes.
She was always on the honor roll. She was in student council.
The straight-A student was also popular.
Cheerleading, band, she was heavily involved. She was real social.
She was one of those eternal cheerleader type people. She was always happy, always bubbly.
When she smiles, she lights up the room.
And as a regular competitor in state and regional beauty pageants, Carla's smile also lit up the stage.
Carla Hughes is one of the sweetest, just all-around girls you'd ever want to meet. She's polite, she's very mannerable.
Her character is so good, it makes her pretty,
She has the tiaras and sashes to prove it, too.
She was Washington County Junior Miss and Miss Greenville team.
In fact, there was only one major setback in Carla's long litany of achievements: her 2004 engagement, just after graduating from the University of Southern Mississippi.
A couple nights before the wedding, her fiancé called it off.
And her fiancé not only walked out on Carla.
Carla Hughes was pregnant at the time.
The father backing out, of the situation was kind of disappointing, but, we sucked it up like we always do. When problems occur, and we moved on.
Carla had the baby boy and got a master's degree from Belhaven College.
I was not concerned about her being a single mom. I knew that she could handle it.
She loved kids. She wanted to be a teacher from day one.
Shortly after receiving her master's, Carla returned home to Greenville and took a teaching job.
She was a kindergarten teacher here. And all the kids loved her, whether they were in her classroom or not.
And you could just see Carla just light up. She was so proud of those kids.
She stayed in school too, working towards an education specialty degree from Delta State University.
She's very smart, energetic, and motivated, a great role model for the other young people.
I would even tease her, are you going to teach or are you going to be a student? But she was always trying to better herself.
To better herself further, Carla took a new job in Jackson, Mississippi at the end of the 2006 school year.
It was a better position. It was a lead teacher position. It was more promising, I think.
It was also more money.
Salary had a lot to do with it because here in the Delta, black teachers don't make a lot of money.
Hired shortly before school started, she had to scramble. Leaving her young son with her parents, she temporarily rented an apartment not far from her new job.
It's a kind of a rough area. I mean, not totally rough, but was kind of heading that way at that time.
I was concerned about the safety, but school was about to start. She had to have somewhere to live.
Carla's mom had reason to be concerned. Less than 3 months after her daughter moved in, the apartment was broken into.
It was a break-in that she reported to Jackson police in early October.
Someone that attempted to break in through the back entrance. And I told her if she don't feel comfortable just getting out, like going in, she can call me.
Carla was soon in the market for a new place to live. But she was more than satisfied with her job at Chastain Middle.
She loved it. She was a cheer coach, and she was involved in some other things. Every service project that I think that they had on campus, she tried to be a part of it.
Carla had also made new friends, including a fellow teacher named Keon Pittman.
He was a basketball coach, taught school, apparently good with kids. People liked him.
Women were especially fond of the 31-year-old athlete.
Keon Pittman isn't a looker, so to speak. You know, he's not this fantastic-looking guy, but he is charismatic.
Was Carla taken in by Keon's charms? She certainly became a regular at the restaurant where Keon moonlighted as a bartender. And as the co-workers became closer friends, they even took a trip to Carla's hometown together.
He came here with her once. I met him for about a good 2 minutes. She just introduced to me as, "Daddy, this is my friend."
But were they more than friends? Carla never said, and with good reason. Keon was engaged to a woman named Avis Banks. Avis Banks only knew Carla as her fiancé's co-worker, but the two women could easily have been friends. Their backgrounds were almost carbon copies.
Avis Banks was from Vicksburg, Mississippi. Went to college. She got a college degree.
She had a degree in early childhood development. She had dreams of opening a daycare one day.
She started dating Keon Pittman in 2004. The couple moved to Jackson the following year once Keon took the coaching job at Chastain Middle.
If it took 1 or 2 jobs to make it, he would do it. He's a very good provider.
Avis took a job at a local daycare. Not long after, she became pregnant. And with a baby on the way, the couple bought a house in the Jackson suburb of Ridgeland.
She found out she was pregnant, and he said he didn't want to take their baby home to an apartment.
The wedding was scheduled for January, assuming Keon didn't get cold feet.
We knew that Avis wanted to be married to him, but I don't think he really wanted to be married yet.
But soon, a wedding would be the least of Keon's worries. On the evening of November 29, 2006, Avis Banks was nearing the end of her second trimester.
She was 5 months pregnant at the time.
And when she left work that evening, the expectant mother was exhausted.
She was tired. She'd stayed a little bit over that day at work.
Approximately 5:15, Avis Banks gets off work. She's on her way home. She places a call to Keon Pittman, her fiancé.
Keon was also working late that night.
Basketball practice that begins that evening somewhere around 5:30.
Keon Pittman talks to her on the phone on her way home from work, asking her what she wants for supper. She was pregnant, didn't really feel like cooking, so he said he would pick up something for supper and bring it home.
Then he said he had to go. Basketball practice was about to start. Moments later, at a little after 5:30 p.m., Avis pulled into the driveway and stopped at the mailbox.
Avis had a habit of getting her mail out of the mailbox and driving into the garage.
Garage door is normally down during the day. She raised the garage door, pulled her car in, let the garage door down behind her.
She always pulls in and closes the garage door before she gets out of her car.
But that night, just as she thought she was safely home, Avis Banks stepped out of her car and straight into a death trap. Avis Banks' dead body lay on the garage floor for the next 3 hours.
Miss Banks' body was discovered by her fiancé, Keon Pittman, when he arrived home about 8:45 from basketball practice.
He runs over to her and he says he tried to shake her and wake her up and she wouldn't, and he just saw
interrupting the phone call between Carla and her mother.
She said, he wants me to come there. I said, well, you don't go.
And it was only after he had called Carla that Keon tried to summon help. But this time he didn't use his phone.
He went to the next door neighbor and he pounded on the next door neighbor's door.
The next door neighbor actually thought that her house was getting broken into, so she calls 911.
911, where's your emergency? Somebody just ran to my door, hollering and screaming.
Our dispatch center received a call from a lady who indicated there was somebody on her front doorstep who was screaming frantically. She wasn't sure what the problem was.
There's a guy running from door to door.
While she's still on the line, she recognizes that it's Mr. Pittman.
I think it's the next door neighbor.
The neighbor stayed on the phone, but sent her husband outside to talk to Keon.
She sent her husband to try to see what the problem was.
And she hears what's going on, and she relays to them that Mr. Pittman's found his fiancée dead.
Coming up, the scene yields clues to the killer's identity.
There was a clear impression of a shoe print on the door.
And questioning Carla uncovers a possible motive.
I told myself I would
2006. Police arrived at the home of Keon Pittman and Avis Banks at around 8:45 p.m. Neighbors had called 911 moments earlier after Keon had come home and found Avis's body.
And when he finds his body of his fiancée there in the garage, he reacts in a very emotional manner.
Judging from where Avis Banks' body was and the items scattered around her, police figured she'd been ambushed.
She was trapped there in the garage.
As she started toward the entrance door into the house, that's when we feel like the surprise attack was on.
Based on the wounds on Avis's body,
or even striking her.
The next 3 shots didn't miss, however.
Whoever fired the weapon walked over to her and shot her point blank at very close range.
The final gunshot wound to the back of the head, which best described as just an execution-style shot.
And Avis's attacker hadn't stopped there.
Our violator in this crime inflicted injuries on her with some type of a knife, 3 stab wounds and a slash wound to the throat.
But why would someone kill Avis? Police found a possible clue at the back door.
There had been a break-in. The back door was kicked in.
It appeared the assailant had also ransacked the inside of the house.
The residence was in a state of disarray. Drawers open, clothes thrown around.
Did that mean Avis had surprised a burglar? The investigators at the scene didn't think so.
DVD player, flat screen television, none of the electronic equipment was disturbed.
Avis's injuries didn't appear to be the detectives at the scene. The passionate nature of the crime and the fact that few valuables appeared to be missing could only add up to one thing.
They believed that this burglary had been staged to cover up the death of Miss Banks.
But who would want Avis dead? In staging the burglary, it looked as if the killer may have made one crucial mistake.
There was a clear impression of a shoe print on the door where entry was forced into the house.
Apparently left inadvertently on the door, the print could prove an important clue in identifying the killer. Crime scene technicians photographed the footprint while detectives drove Keon down to the station for questioning.
We decided to get him away from the scene where all the emotions were.
Taken to the police station and placed in an interrogation room for observation, Keon's emotions were still running high as he placed several calls on his cell phone. But was he upset by Avis's death, or that police might try and pin him with her murder?
I don't like this at all. These motherfuckers think I had something to do with the shit.
But when the investigators finally sat down with Keon later that evening,
informed him this is a routine investigation, basically.
Whenever you have a murder and you find the person that discovered the body, you always have to start with that person.
there were several things that puzzled the investigators. For starters, although Keon had used his cell phone to call numerous people from the police station, he asked the neighbors to dial 911.
When he was asked about why he didn't make the 911 call, his only explanation was that the service plan that he has through his cell phone company, he wasn't sure where the call would be routed.
The answer struck the investigators as odd.
If it's a cell phone, you can dial 911 and it will call 911.
Suspicious, the investigators asked Keon to retrace his steps that afternoon and evening.
He'd finished up school that day, ran some errands, picked up some groceries.
He had not gone home, however. Instead, Keon said he had dropped the groceries at an apartment near the school that belonged to a friend and fellow teacher at Chastain Middle, Carla Hughes.
He had to go to basketball practice and he didn't want the food to spoil. So he goes to the grocery store, to Carla Hughes' house, drops off the groceries there.
Miss Hughes did have an apartment that was between the school where they worked and Mr. Pittman's home.
Then, according to Keon, he'd gone back to basketball practice.
He had conducted basketball practice, finished up there around 7:30 or so that night.
And after practice was over with, he went back to Carla's house, got his food, and went home. And that's when he found Avis in the garage.
The interview over, the police let Keon leave, but only after they collected some additional evidence. The swabs, along with Keon's clothes and shoes, went to the crime lab for testing. While waiting for the results, police started digging into Keon Pittman's background and trying to confirm his alibi.
We needed to put him at basketball practice at the time the murder happened.
That was the plan, but the investigation took on a decidedly different tack on November 30th when police stopped by the restaurant where Keon worked on the side and came across a familiar name.
Detective Dillard made a visit to find out.
Evening of the murder, and the two teachers apparently socialized outside work.
What is exactly this relationship? Is there anything here we need to know that would have caused him to commit this murder?
Keon's co-workers didn't know anything specific, and Avis's parents knew even less.
They showed us some pictures of Carla and asked, do we know Carla Hughes? And I told them no. It's the first time I heard it.
The next day, on December 1st, the detectives drove to Chastain Middle School to interview Carla Hughes.
She came up to the office and she was crying just hysterically.
Miss Hughes was very upset, told him she was upset because of what had happened to Mr. Pittman, that he had found his fiancée dead.
And that's not all Carla told the officer.
She told me, without a doubt, emphatically no, that they were not romantically involved.
The detectives did have more questions for Carla, however. They asked her to come into the station after work.
She was very understanding as to what we were doing, what we were looking for, what we needed to talk to her about. She didn't have any problems coming in and talking to us.
That afternoon in the interrogation room, Carla walked the detectives through the evening of Avis's murder.
We talked right after work, after we dismissed the kids. And he told me he was going to go to the grocery store, and then he'd be at my house right after that.
And according to Carla, Keon had come back by her apartment after basketball practice.
He came by around 7:35, something like that. He stayed about.
Leave that night, moments after Keon had found Avis's body.
He would call me screaming.
Is it unusual for him to, or does he normally call you when you get home? Hey, I didn't know.
Usually.
The news that Keon had found his fiancée dead and proceeded to call another woman immediately aroused the investigators' suspicion.
That began them to really question what was going on.
I mean, you know, sometimes he'll call as soon as he gets home, and we may talk on the phone.
Where's his girlfriend? His wife, his son.
At home.
And what had Avis thought of all the time Keon and Carla spent talking on the phone?
She knew we were friends. I mean, it was times we were together, and he would call her, like, for instance, if we went out to eat, you know, me, him, and the other coaches, or sometimes just me and him, if we would hang out, he would call her, and he'd be like, I'm with Carla, you know, or whatever. So she knew about me.
Did they do more than just hang out? Earlier at school, she'd emphatically denied any romantic relationship with Keon, but her story changed in the interrogation room.
Were you two romantically involved? Don't lie to me about this.
I'm not.
Okay. Were you two involved with each other?
Yes.
There was a romantic/sexual relationship that was going on with Mr. Pittman.
According to Carla, her relationship with Keon wasn't serious.
As far as just like this full-out blown romantic love affair, that's not what it was. It really wasn't.
And Carla claims she had been no threat to Avis.
I told myself I would never want you to leave her for me, or for anybody.
Carla also denied having anything to do with Avis's death.
You going to that?
No, I don't.
Do you have access to it?
No, I don't. I mean, my father has a lot of guns. He's a hunter. But I don't have them.
Coming up, police receive an important phone call.
There was a valuable piece of evidence that they were holding.
But will the new evidence lead police to the killer or an accomplice?
He knew that Carla knew something about it.
By the early afternoon of December 1st, 2006, it had been less than 48 hours since the murder of Avis Banks. But Ridgeland, Mississippi police already had two strong suspects. The first, fiancé. But the police knew that he had also been having an affair with their second suspect, Carla Hughes.
She did confess to having a romantic relationship with him.
But once we found out that there was a sexual relationship, she became a suspect at that point.
Had the lovers conspired to kill Avis? Or was the affair with Carla merely Keon's motive? The police needed more evidence.
We subpoenaed Keon Pittman's cell phone records. We subpoenaed Carla Hughes' cell phone records, as well as Avis Banks.
Keon's clothes and gunshot residue test had also been sent to the crime lab for processing. Until the results came back, the only hard evidence police had was a shoe print on the back door of Avis's house, and the 4 .38 caliber slugs recovered from her body.
The autopsy indicated that that's the caliber gun we were looking for.
4 slugs, the absence of shell casings at the scene, and a single bullet hole in the garage door provided additional clues about the murder weapon.
Based off the processing of the crime scene, we felt like we were looking for a 5-shot revolver.
Then, on the morning of December 5th, Ridgeland police received a phone call that would prove crucial to the case.
We got a phone call from a local attorney in Canton, Mississippi, who indicated that there was a valuable piece of evidence that they were holding.
Police found out just how valuable when they met with the attorney and his client later that same day.
They brought us a Rossi .38 special 5-shot revolver.
Even more interesting to police was who had come forward with the gun.
Carla Hughes, that's my first cousin. Our mothers are sisters.
James Nash and Patrick Nash were the uncle and first cousin of Carla Hughes.
According to Patrick Nash, Carla had dropped by his house on Sunday, November 26th, just 3 days before Avis's murder.
Miss Hughes told her cousin that she needed to borrow a weapon for protection.
She had concerns about the neighborhood, according to Patrick.
She had had some trouble at her townhome. There'd been some break-ins over there.
I told her if she don't feel comfortable just getting out, like going in, she can get some mace and strap it onto her purse.
But Carla wasn't interested in that advice, her cousin claimed.
That was when she asked me how many guns did I have.
Patrick loaned his cousin a .38 caliber Rossi revolver. She brought it back 4 days later, on December 1st.
She was telling me the police came up to the school and, just asking different questions.
And as police now knew, at least one of Carla's answers had been a lie.
She had denied to law enforcement that she had access to a weapon.
Not just any weapon either. As Patrick explained to police, the gun had been loaded when he loaned it to Carla.
When she brought it back, wasn't any bullets left. Just when I asked her, hey Carla, you still got them bullets? And that was when she told me that she went target practice.
Was it true? Or had police recovered 4 of those projectiles from Avis Banks' body? Carla's cousin provided one more clue. The loaded gun wasn't all he had loaned her.
He also gave her a lock blade folding hunting type knife.
Miss Banks was killed not only by multiple gunshot wounds, she was stabbed several times.
Carla had not returned the knife.
A knife, I pretty much just offered to her. I told her she can have the knife.
Police now had the gun, however. They sent the suspected murder weapon to the crime lab for testing and then asked Carla to come in for more questioning.
She had retained counsel at that time, so we reached out to her attorney.
They told me they wanted to talk to her and asked me if I would bring her so that they could talk to her.
On Wednesday, December 6th, Carla was back in an interrogation room at the Ridgeland police station.
She wasn't quite as confident as she was on that Friday interview. I think she knew at that point that she was going to jail for some type of crime.
She was right. The investigators informed her that she was being arrested as an accessory to murder.
That meant to me that they were focusing on Pittman and they felt like she had helped him in some way.
And the accessory charges were obviously a push to get Carla to finger Keon as Avis's killer.
I was hoping that Carla would come forward and say, look, this is what I want to do. I want to cut a deal.
The investigators would be disappointed.
She refused to speak with law enforcement, so we were unable to get any additional information from her.
Was Carla protecting Keon? Or was there another explanation for her silence? The day after she was arrested, detectives went to Carla's apartment with a search warrant.
We were looking for various pieces of evidence to include the shell casings, maybe some blood-stained clothes.
Police were also keeping their eyes out for the knife Patrick had allegedly loaned to Carla and shoes that matched the print found at the crime scene.
The tread pattern that had been found at the crime scene. The rear door to the house had been kicked open, and the tread pattern was photographed and documented.
There was no trace of the knife, but in an upstairs closet, police did find a possible match for the shoe print.
As luck would have it, the first pair of shoes that I put my hands on, once I entered the upper room closet, was tread design that was similar to those shoes.
The shoes went to the crime lab for analysis. While awaiting the results, the Madison County District Attorney's Office decided to turn up the heat on Carla. On December 8th, they charged her with 2 counts of capital murder.
One for the murder, the death of Avis Banks, and another for the death of her unborn child.
In the state of Mississippi, the unborn fetus at the gestation period of 5 months is considered a human being.
Those who knew Carla met the murder charges with utter disbelief.
That had to be a mistake. People need to stop lying. That's not true.
It's just indescribable. You know, it felt like a ton of bricks had fallen on my head.
Were the police truly convinced Carla was the killer? Or were the new charges merely additional leverage aimed at convincing her to flip?
The detective told me that he felt that Pittman is the one that committed this crime, and he knew that Carla knew something about it.
And with police still awaiting the results of his gunshot residue test and confirmation of his alibi, Keon appeared to be worried. He said as much when he was interviewed by a local TV station.
From the very jump, it seems to me like I have been treated as the #1 suspect or the person that they're looking for. And I mean, it's how do you go back to that? You know, and it's
Coming up, the case goes to court, but will Carla be the one on trial?
Evidence is going to show you.
Carla Hughes when she took her seat at the front of the room on October 5th, 2009. She was about to stand trial for the murder of Avis Banks and her unborn child.
People were really wondering, you know, how could a woman that had such a bright future manage to find herself in a situation such as this?
According to Carla, it was all a horrible mistake. But when the prosecutor stood and delivered his opening statement that morning, he said the evidence would confirm that Carla had killed Avis out of sheer jealousy.
She wanted to be with Keon Pittman. She wanted to have a house and she wanted to raise a family.
She wanted Avis' life. She wanted her lifestyle. She wanted what Avis had.
And prosecutors claim that Keon's refusal to leave Avis had been a particularly bitter blow for Carla.
I'm sure that brought up a lot of hurt feelings from her relationship before, where her fiancé called off the marriage a couple nights before the wedding.
According to the prosecution, Carla's bitter jealousy had cost Avis her life, and it could potentially cost Carla hers too. The DA wrapped his opening argument by telling jurors that should they convict Carla, he was prepared to seek the death penalty.
We felt like, based on the fact that Miss Banks was not only shot but stabbed and slashed, and then also that she was 5 months pregnant at the time, that this was a case that merited us seeking the death penalty.
In the defense open, Carla's attorney countered by arguing that the affair also gave Keon a motive to kill Avis.
Keon was a bona fide womanizer, and he did not want this child. Keon Pittman had a motive for murder.
The defense's theory was that Mr. Pittman did this because he didn't want to be tied down with a wife and a child.
Keon had never been charged in the murder, not even as an accessory. Instead, he was one of the prosecution's key witnesses. And much like his television interview years earlier, he did not hold back any emotion when he took the stand on October 6th.
He put his head in his hands. He got tissue. He acted like he was crying. I never really saw any tears, neither did anybody else.
Keon claimed that the same overwrought emotions had led him to call Carla upon finding his fiance's body.
Why did you call Carla?
Because I was looking for anyone to come. At that point, I didn't care. I just wanted someone there.
Keon also denied having any desire to leave Avis.
Were you going to leave Avis Banks for Carla Hughes, or how did you view the long-term prospects for your relationship with Carla Hughes?
There was no long-term. It was sexual, caught up in the moment. Speaking of myself, there never was a long-term plan with Carla.
It was almost hurtful for other people to hear what he said about Carla Hughes. They were supposed to have a very close relationship, but he talked about her as though she was a whore.
Keon didn't deny that his womanizing contributed to Avis's death.
Do you feel any responsibility for her death?
Yes. If I would have stayed faithful to who I was with, if I hadn't flirt with other women, this chain of events would have never taken place.
But he was adamant that he was no killer.
Did you kill Avis Banks?
No.
He was not at the house when Avis was killed. That was verified through witness statements, through his own cell phone records. We were able to put him at basketball practice at the time the murder happened.
Keon's alibi depended upon one witness in particular. According to Keon, while his fiancée was being killed, he was at basketball practice, flirting with yet another woman.
She was a basketball team mom for this junior high team. She had a son that played on it.
According to Keon, they'd spent most of the practice texting back and forth.
So why didn't you just go down there and talk to her?
Because she was married and her son was there, and of course, he didn't want to be just blatant.
On cross, the defense tried to cast doubt on Keon's alibi. They argued that the school was close enough to home for Keon to slip out, commit the crime, and return to basketball practice before anyone noticed.
Pittman had every opportunity to do this before the time he was at basketball practice. He had every opportunity to do it after basketball practice.
They also claimed that he had ample access to both the shoes and the gun at Carla's house.
He visited her before he went to basketball practice, and he visited her after basketball practice.
Carla's lawyer would try to say that's when he went upstairs, got the gun and the knife, changed into Carla's shoes.
The defense tried to say, well, Mr. Pittman and Miss Hughes wore the same size shoes, so maybe he could have worn those shoes, and maybe he could have gone and planted those shoes back in her house.
But the prosecution countered by claiming that the cell phone records appeared to confirm Keon's alibi.
Keon Pittman's cell phone records show that he was where he said he was. He was at the grocery store. He was at the school.
During that time, he had even called Carla and received a call from her. Both calls not only fit his story about dropping by Carla's with his groceries, they also placed Carla near the scene of the murder.
Cell phone records of Carla Hughes place her there in the vicinity, hitting off of a cell tower that's probably located somewhere between a half and a quarter of a mile from the house where the murder occurred.
This was around 5:30, 5:35, up to about 5 minutes after 6 on the day of the murder.
Plus, according to the testimony of the ballistics expert, the gun Carla had borrowed from her cousin was definitely the murder weapon.
The ballistics says that 100% beyond a reasonable doubt, beyond any doubt, that was the gun used.
And the shoes detectives found in Carla's apartment? On October 9th, an expert from a private crime lab took the stand and testified as to his findings.
The lab did say the print to these shoes is very consistent to the print that we retrieved from Davis's house.
And that wasn't all that the lab found either.
In the crevices of these black shoes was some dark red blood that was identified as that of the victim, Avis Banks.
There was one small problem, however. The state crime lab had also tested the shoes.
The Mississippi Crime Lab examined those shoes and issued a report, a written report, that there was no blood on the shoe.
Why hadn't the state lab found any blood? Prosecutors offered jurors an explanation.
The shoes were sent to the crime lab with a note that was attached to that to stay away from the sole area because they're trying to match impressions up with our photographs. So the analyst that tested the shoes at the crime lab never did swab the area where our blood evidence was.
The blood wasn't the only discrepancy the defense harped on when they started presenting their case on October 10th.
They didn't find any gun residue on Carla. They found gunpowder residue on Pittman, on his right hand.
Everything leads to Pittman as far as I'm concerned.
He may not have wanted to be with Avis. He may not have wanted to be a father. Who knows?
Although Carla was facing a potential death sentence, her attorneys were confident they had raised reasonable doubt. On October 12th, the defense rested without calling Carla to the stand.
We were surprised by that. We had prepared for a cross-examination.
We didn't think that we needed to put Carla on to expose her to cross-examination when they had not presented any evidence to implicate Carla.
Was it the right call? When the jury retired that afternoon, the prosecutors felt confident.
We had gotten in all the evidence that we possibly could, so we felt like that we had a very good shot.
But a conviction was far from certain.
You still had to have them to believe that these are findings, nothing more, nothing less. And a good attorney, of course, going to try to know more of that, going to try to muddy the water, so to speak. And her attorney, Johnny Walls, I think he did a fairly decent job.
Coming up, the jury makes a surprising decision.
It was the mercy of the Lord that's giving her a second chance.
On Tuesday morning, October 13, 2009, a Mississippi jury reached its verdict in the murder trial of Carla Hughes. Charged with the murder of Avis Banks and her unborn child, the 28-year-old single mother faced a possible death sentence if convicted.
It was so tense in the courtroom that sheriff's deputies sat on the ends of the pews to control any outburst. My heart was racing.
If the defendant would please rise. Relative to count 1, the verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Hughes, guilty of capital murder as charged in count 1 of the indictment. Relative to count 2, the verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Hughes, guilty of capital murder as charged in count 2 of the indictment.
Carla was devastated.
She lost it. She just started crying hysterically, head in hands, head on the table. She lost it.
Emotions were strong for Avis's family, too.
When the verdict came in and they said guilty, pressure was off of me and a shadow came from me. It said,
I think all that hatred in me just come out. I hadn't felt that good in 3 years.
But for Carla, the next day at sentencing came a sort of reprieve. Faced with the prospect of putting a mother to death, the jurors fell back on their only other option.
She's currently serving 2 sentences of life without parole on both of the murders.
It was the mercy of the Lord that's giving her a second chance. And my prayer is that Carla will be free to come home.
Linda Hughes remains convinced of her daughter's innocence and suspicious of Keon. It started as an unusual romance between one young woman and 3 older men.
She appeared to be engaged to 3 guys at the same time.
They all knew about one another, yet they were in close proximity to one another.
Eventually, the tangled relationship would come unraveled. None of the fiancés ever said, "I do." But one would be found dead in the Alaskan wilderness.
It was basically an execution.
Had the 3-way rivalry turned deadly? An answer would take almost 10 years to uncover, and in a surprising twist, depend largely upon the dead man's own words. 2 cold case investigators from Alaska rang the doorbell of an upscale suburban home outside Olympia, Washington.
It's just what you would call, I guess an average all-American street. Nice houses, nice yards and gardens.
They'd come looking for a woman named Michelle Linehan.
Michelle was a doctor's wife, an educated woman. She has a master's degree in public administration. They had a daughter together. She was this PTA mom.
She worked for the Washington State Executive Ethics Board, the watchdog group that investigated ethics complaints against state workers.
The Michelle the detectives had come to question was very different from the doctor's wife who invited them in for coffee that afternoon. In another life, a decade earlier, she had been a stripper in Anchorage, Alaska.
She was once topless dancing, mixed up with a lot of guys.
Just by talking and just by flirting, she could make thousands in a night.
It just came easily to her. She was just a very good actress.
Not only was this suburban PTA mom a former exotic dancer, she was also at the center of a 9-year-old murder investigation. A decade before detectives knocked on Michelle Linehan's front door, Michelle Hughes had been living in Alaska. A Louisiana native, she'd made the move north in 1994.
She went with some friends and just fell totally in love with the place. She loved the outdoors. She loves animals. It was a breathtaking experience for her.
But for all Michelle's love of the outdoors, she earned her living indoors at an Anchorage strip club called the Great Alaskan Bush Company.
It's the classiest, I would say, of the strip clubs in town, definitely.
She was quite successful, perhaps the most successful dancer at the Bush Company.
Michelle was so successful that it only took her a few months to earn a down payment for a house. Not bad, considering that according to co-worker Laura Aspiotis, Michelle wasn't much for dancing on stage.
Table dancing, she didn't do much of that either, because mostly what she did was sit and talk. I mean, she was very good at that.
And one night in October of 1994, she ended up talking to a man named Kent Leppink. Another recent transplant from the lower 48. He'd come to Alaska to take up commercial fishing.
He loved the out of doors. He always loved hunting. He loved fishing. And he was good at it.
Kent quickly became one of Michelle's best customers.
Kent's parents had loaned him quite a bit of money. He spent a lot of it on Michelle.
By November, they were talking marriage. He gave her a ring, actually gave her an engagement ring.
Kent moved into Michelle's house, despite the fact that she was also seeing and secretly engaged to another man, a salesman named Scott Hilke. Like Kent, Michelle had met him at the Bush Company.
He traveled quite a bit, and they dated on and off.
And when he wasn't traveling, Scott stayed with Michelle and Kent. But Kent didn't appear to be concerned with the arrangement.
Michelle told him that Scott was gay and that he didn't have to worry about Scott.
Likewise, Michelle told Scott that Kent was gay. And once Michelle met John Carlin III, things would get even more complicated. A widower from New Jersey, John and his teenage son had come to Alaska in 1994. Not long after, in June of '95, he met Michelle Hughes at the Bush Company.
She came by his table and introduced herself, and they became acquainted.
By the end of the evening, Michelle and John were becoming well acquainted.
I said, I'm going with my friend to Amsterdam. And she said, oh, I always wanted to go to Amsterdam. And being a guy, I said, no problem. You want to go? I thought she'd say no, and she didn't.
By August of that year, he was taking her to Europe with him.
And when her house was being remodeled in November of '95, John invited Michelle to move in.
I said, that's fine. You know why your house is being fixed?
Kent moved in too. The unusual living arrangements started to sound like something out of a Hollywood sitcom.
I said, sort of like Jack Tripper, just sort of opposite of the Three's Company thing.
Only instead of Three's Company, it was 5.
Kent Lepink stayed there too. Scott Hilke, when he came into town, also stayed there. Sometimes 3 of them in the same house, and John Carlin's son as well.
That was kind of an unusual family unit, if I can use that word.
Holding it all together was Michelle, who also became a surrogate mother to John's teenage son.
She thought it was her place to be a mother to this child who had not that long ago lost his own mother.
She was someone who cared deeply for him. She was someone that he could talk to.
In return, the boy's father cared quite a bit for Michelle.
John gave her a fur coat. He put a lot of cash into her house.
And that Christmas, John also presented Michelle with an engagement ring.
John proposed to Michelle during a brief window of opportunity when she had supposedly broken up with Mr. Hilke.
The breakup came at the end of 1995, when work took Hilke back home to California.
He ended up leaving Alaska very late 1995, very early 1996.
Kent Lepink was still in the picture, although John didn't consider Kent serious competition.
When she's with John, she was very affectionate with them, and there's a lot of physical contact. When she's with Kent, she wasn't affectionate with him.
Kent, however, was undeterred by Michelle's indifference.
For some reason, he was totally head over heels in love with her.
His obsession and his feelings were so strong for Michelle that probably what was going on with him was some kind of denial.
In the spring of 1996, after a short breakup, Scott Hilke was back in Michelle Hughes' life. Scott wasn't, however, back in Alaska.
Michelle, every 2 weeks, was spending 2 weeks in California with Scott. And she was just constantly flying down there.
When she wasn't off with Scott, she continued to live with John.
I think John was pretty astute and aware of the situation.
Kent, on the other hand, wasn't. Still living at John's house and undeterred by his fiance's frequent trips to California, he continued to make wedding plans.
And he calls his mother in February of 1996 and says, Mom, guess what? Michelle has agreed and we're going to set dates.
What Kent shared with me was she wanted a different life. She wanted a home. She wanted a family.
In fact, Kent and Michelle had already started combining their lives. They set up a joint checking account. Kent rewrote his will, leaving everything to her, and they even took out life insurance policies, naming each other as the beneficiary.
I was there the day that they actually went out and got it. And Michelle was really upset. Kent had asked her if he could be the beneficiary of her life insurance policy. And she didn't like that at all.
Kent's parents, when he told them about the policies, weren't crazy about them.
Kent, this is just nuts. Let's just cancel it and then move on.
Kent's older brother Craig was even more blunt about it. The $1 million policy wasn't just crazy, it was dangerous.
Craig said, Kent, you're walking around with a bullseye drawn on your back.
And as spring slipped by with no firm plans for the wedding, Kent's family became more and more concerned. On April 26, 1996, Kent's dad arrived in Anchorage on a mission.
He came up from the lower 48 to visit Kent to try to figure out what in the world was going on with the wedding.
He found his son asking the same question.
All Kent knew is one day he woke up, his father was coming the next day, Michelle was gone.
He was a little bit beside himself. He kept telling me that, well, John Carlin knows where she's at, but he won't tell me. I said, well, that's really neat, isn't it?
Kent spent 5 embarrassing, frantic days with his father, trying to figure out what had become of his fiancée.
I think at that point, the light started coming on for him.
There's a growing concern by Kent as to what's happening.
Kent was seeing a different side of Michelle. But the question was, what would he do about it? On May 2nd, 1996, 3 days after Kent's father arrived home from Alaska, he and his wife received a final message from their son.
We received like a big manila envelope in the mail from Kent, addressed to my husband and I.
The letter, according to the postmark, had been mailed moments after Kent had dropped his dad off at the airport. Inside, Kent's parents found a short note and a second sealed envelope.
On the outside of that envelope is written, do not open unless something happens to me.
As instructed, the Leppings laid the second letter aside, but Betsy also made a worried phone call to her son. She got his message service.
Of course, he never called back.
And he never would. Coming up, what is inside the second letter? Is it the crucial clue investigators would need to solve a murder? Or the final revenge of a spurned fiancé?
He said, if Michelle really loves me and we really are going to get married, this letter will never be read by you.
On May 2nd, 1996, a utility crew drove up to a remote microwave tower outside Hope, Alaska.
The man who was driving the utility truck looked up this trail and he saw something red in the trail.
It was a man in a red jacket lying dead on the ground.
It was basically a whodunit murder. They found a body and they didn't have a suspect.
Within an hour, the remote site was swarming with state troopers.
They isolate the scene, start taking measurements, marking where things are of significance.
The troopers found 3 .44 caliber shell casings and 2 distinct sets of footprints. One for the dead man and one for his killer.
Whether he was taken up there at gunpoint or the gun came out somewhere along the trail, that we do not know.
Investigators did, however, know the dead man's identity, Kent Lepping.
He had his driver's license on him, so his identity was discovered.
Kent had been shot 3 times. In the back, stomach, and finally, the face.
Kent was probably still alive at the time that shot entered, although barely.
Then the killer had walked away, leaving behind Kent's wallet, his checkbook, and what just might have been the most valuable thing in the dead man's pockets.
He did have a change of beneficiary form in his clothing.
Kent had apparently filled out the form a week earlier, after Michelle had ditched his dad's visit. On it, he named his parents as the beneficiaries of his life insurance policy.
Literally just a few days before he was found killed down in Hope, he had gone into the insurance office and changed his beneficiary
The slip of paper didn't list the prior beneficiary or the amount of the policy, leaving police puzzled about its significance. Hoping for an answer, they sent 2 troopers to the address listed on Kent's checkbook. At 3 on Friday afternoon, May 3rd, they knocked on the door of the woman whose name also appeared on the joint account, Michelle Hughes.
She initially said that he was her boyfriend, but then that they weren't really boyfriend-girlfriend like most boyfriend-girlfriend relationships.
We have a very unique relationship. It's
Open relationship?
no, like a conventional, not conventional, it's
Explain to me a little bit if you can.
I have a boyfriend.
Michelle, as she explained to the troopers, had a boyfriend besides Kent, one she'd just visited in California.
A few days prior to Kent's disappearance, and that she had gone to Lake Tahoe with Scott Hilke.
And as Michelle told the troopers, she had a fiancé. The engagement, according to Michelle, was merely a smokescreen to hide a secret he'd struggled to keep from his family.
He likes Daddy.
He likes that.
His dad doesn't know that.
Death. Immediately, they opened Kent's mysterious letter.
When we opened it up, it explained an awful lot of things. And he named the...
Found dead, it's either John, Scott, or Michelle. And to take her down.
In my then almost 20 years with the state troopers, I'd never heard of a victim ever having done something like this.
What motive, police wondered, could Michelle have to kill Kent? That's when Kent's parents filled investigators in about Kent's $1 million life insurance policy, the one that had once named Michelle as beneficiary. Had the entire engagement simply been laying the groundwork for murder? Kent, it appeared, had suspected as much. Something must have happened to tip Kent off that his life was in danger, but whatever it was, it didn't stop him from giving Michelle another chance.
He said, if Michelle really loves me and we really are going to get married, this letter will never be read by you.
Had Kent's hope for the best cost him his life? On May 5th, the troopers drove out to Michelle's house and questioned her a second time.
Do you know if anybody has anything to gain from Kent's death?
No, other than life insurance.
Kent, of course, had taken Michelle's name off the policy. But did she know?
As beneficiary, he wrote me for the majority of it, and his dad the rest. I'm not sure what the percentage was.
Okay. And to your knowledge, it's never been changed?
I don't know.
Michelle may have had a motive for murder. She also, however, had an alibi.
Michelle was at Lake Tahoe with Scott. She had left on the afternoon of the 25th, Friday.
And she hadn't returned until after Kent was killed. That left John. Was he the source of the second set of footprints at the crime scene? The police were starting to wonder. The same day, they paid him a visit. John claimed he didn't know anything about the crime. He did, however, have Kent's car.
Kent LePink's car was still at the John Carlin residence here in Anchorage.
In the car, troopers found another clue, a printout of an email John had sent Michelle.
It was a description by him of a cabin in Hope that he had purchased.
At the bottom of the note, Michelle handwrote a response to John saying, please don't tell anybody where we are.
It appeared Kent had found the note. But how did his dead body end up in the woods outside Hope?
There must have been, from our perspective, some kind of further discussion, if not argument, with John about, John, where in the hell is Michelle? What is going on? And in that context, it seems reasonable to us to conclude that John and Kent end up down on this trail that may well have appeared to Kent to be leading to a cabin.
The pieces, as far as the investigators were concerned, were starting to fall into place. $1 million worth of insurance provided the motive. John contributed the muscle. And Scott, thanks to a conveniently timed trip to Tahoe, provided Michelle's cover. Though it appeared that Scott did play a role, police came to the conclusion that it was an unknowing one.
He was a dupe in the whole thing. His whole purpose in life at that point was to be her alibi.
By June, the state troopers were even closing in on what they believed to be the murder weapon. The slugs recovered during Kent's autopsy provided crucial clues to the murder weapon's identity.
These bullets, you have what's known as polygonal rifling. That is a very distinct type of rifling.
There was, in fact, only one kind of .44 automatic that could have killed Kent Leppink.
It was pretty clearly a Desert Eagle 44 pistol that was the source of the bullets.
On June 29th, the state troopers brought John in to question him again. He denied ever owning a .44, much less a Desert Eagle.
Have you ever, since you've been in Alaska or when you were in New Jersey, ever owned a .44 caliber handgun, John? Since I've been here? Mm-hmm. And what about here in New Jersey? .44 caliber. Shot him. Yeah, friends, but
The state troopers weren't prepared to take John's word for it, however. On July 19th, they went to his house with a search warrant. They seized computers and several guns, but no Desert Eagle.
An empty holster was found large enough to accommodate such a large handgun.
Had that holster held a Desert Eagle? Experts at the State Forensics Lab in Anchorage suspected so.
The firearms people at the crime lab here in Anchorage told me that from the pattern and indentations in the holster itself, that it was consistent with having contained.
Reviewing a case like that, they're thinking, if I go with weak evidence and there's an acquittal, I'm never going to be able to do this again.
Weeks passed and the case went cold. Then months and years. Although the investigation was never officially closed, the key players moved on, scattering across the country. Scott in California, John to New Jersey. Neither of the men ever married Michelle, who moved back home to Louisiana and enrolled in Loyola University.
She ended up getting her master's degree in public service.
In 1998, after all those Alaska engagements, Michelle actually did get married to an aspiring doctor named Colin Linehan. Coming up, marriage and motherhood make for a very different Michelle. But new evidence brings her past back to haunt her and sends investigators in a promising... In 2004, it had been 8 years since Kent Leppink was found shot in the woods outside Hope, Alaska. The mystery of his death had never been solved. The case remained open, and that year became a top priority for the state's new cold case squad.
Cold Case Investigative Unit had put together a list of cold cases and had decided which ones looked like they might result in prosecutions with a little bit more work. And this was on that list, this case.
It was cold comfort to Kent's parents, who'd waited 8 long years to see their son's killer brought to justice.
It was eating my husband up. It was eating me up. We know who killed him. It all fits together so beautifully.
The Leppinks, based on their son's last letter, were convinced Michelle and John had conspired to kill Kent. But would a dead man's hunch hold up in a court of law?
It's a piece of hearsay. The person who said it wasn't available to cross-examine.
Worse, investigators had never been able to track down the murder weapon. A powerful .44 caliber Desert Eagle automatic.
They were missing evidence that connected suspects to the crime.
There was something else missing from the case, too. When the trooper who'd headed the original investigation back in '96 learned the cold case squad had taken the matter up, he picked up the phone and made a suggestion.
I was notified that they may be going to grand jury, and I said, did you go see the boy? Go see the boy.
The boy in this case was Carlin's son, John IV. Although he'd had a ringside seat as Michelle juggled 3 fiancés back in '96, he'd never been asked to give a statement to police.
He was not interviewed extensively. In fact, he was hardly interviewed at all because he was a juvenile.
As a juvenile, police could never question him without his father present.
He was being guarded and protected and kept away from the police by his father.
9 years later, however,
when neither his father is around or Michelle is around, and he's agreeable, or at least he goes ahead and does provide information. I hesitate to say he was agreeable because I think he was upset.
he had reason to be. He was about to rat out 2 people he cared about, his father and Michelle.
He became very fond of Michelle. She was like a surrogate big sister to him, I think.
He recalled, after Kent's death, seeing Michelle and his father downstairs in the bathroom, a big gun in the sink, and it smelled like bleach.
Washing the gun with bleach would eliminate things like blood and fingerprints and probably get rid of hair and fibers and other trace evidence.
But was the gun the murder weapon, the missing Desert Eagle?
He can't say Desert Eagle, but it was a gun, a revolver.
He said it was the big black gun. He always referred to it as the big black gun.
John told police his father got the gun from an ad in the Anchorage newspaper.
So I went back and I checked Anchorage Daily News Sunday classifieds for Desert Eagle sale.
Investigator Branchflower found an ad from January of '95. Contacting the man who'd sold the gun, he didn't remember Carlin, but he did remember going to Carlin's house.
He remembered a built-in bookcase in the wall that impressed him.
And shown the empty holster police had found back in '96, the one forensic experts believed had once held a Desert Eagle. The man identified it as the one he'd sold with the gun.
It was fairly reliable proof that, unlike his denials, John Carlin had in fact owned a Desert Eagle 44.
On May 13, 2005, the investigators from Alaska returned to Washington State, this time to Olympia, where Michelle and her husband Colin had settled after leaving New Orleans.
She offered to cooperate. She had the detectives over for coffee.
And that afternoon over coffee, Michelle seemed more than willing to assist the Alaska State Troopers in their investigation.
We said, who killed Kent? And so then she launched into her theories about what could have possibly happened. She said the worst possible scenario is that John Carlin was involved in the murder.
But what about Michelle? In his last letter, Kent had also fingered her for his murder. Did the investigators still consider her a suspect? The answer came on September 28, 2006, when an Alaska grand jury issued 2 murder indictments, one against John Carlin III, the other against Michelle Linehan.
All of a sudden it was an indictment. Then the rest was just a nightmare. It was just an absolute nightmare.
John turned himself in on October 2nd. Michelle 2 days later. Pleading not guilty, she and husband Colin prepared to fight. And the case against Michelle appeared to give them plenty of ammunition.
You don't have a gun, you don't have a witness, you don't have a lot of stuff. You got a little circumstantial stuff and pieces, parts.
What little evidence there was, particularly regarding the missing gun, pointed primarily toward John Carlin. He stood trial first in early spring of 2007. His own son took the stand for the prosecution on March 14th.
I remember coming around the corner and seeing Michelle and my father, and there was a firearm in the sink.
On cross, Carlin's defense didn't deny the gun-washing incident his son witnessed. However, they explained he'd merely been trying to protect Michelle.
They portrayed Michelle as the one who pulled the trigger.
There was, however, one problem with the portrayal. Michelle was still in Tahoe when the shots were fired.
The evidence was always pretty clear that it was John who did the shooting and Michelle who did the soliciting and the encouraging.
Prosecutors presented emails that they said proved Michelle had talked Carlin into committing the murder.
She talks about our getaway in that email. She describes a trip to the Seychelles.
Why the Seychelles? According to Michelle's email, the islands were an ideal spot for a getaway, romantic or otherwise.
No matter what crimes you've committed, they will not extradite.
Of course, John Carlin never made it to the Seychelles. Without the $1 million payoff from Kent's insurance, there'd been no island getaway. Instead, the best John could hope for was evading a prison sentence. On April 3rd, 2007, the jury reached its verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, John Carlin III, guilty of murder in the first degree.
Coming up, Michelle's case goes to trial, and jurors consider another possible motive in Kent Lepping's death.
A letter that suggests to some, when you read it, that he wanted to set people up.
The Michelle Linehan that walked into an Anchorage courtroom on September 20th, 2007, was a very different woman from Michelle Hughes, the stripper that had danced on stage at the Bush Company over a decade earlier.
She's a family woman with a child down in Washington State, a physician husband. It was just night and day, and a lot of people couldn't believe that she was the same woman.
And how could this woman, this successful wife and mother, be accused of murder?
I remember talking to a neighbor who was very shocked and stunned and didn't believe that Michelle could have had anything to do with this.
Michelle's PTA mom image wasn't the only challenge prosecutors faced either.
Everyone watches CSI and they want all the DNA evidence, all the murder weapon and all these things. And the reality is that those things aren't always there.
In his opening statement, prosecutor Pat Gullifson explained there was no DNA evidence in this case because Michelle had been careful not to kill Kent Lepping herself.
All she needed was somebody to do the dirty work, and she found an able and a willing partner in John Carlin III.
But what about Scott Hilke, fiancé number one, and the man who, according to the police, had unwittingly provided Michelle with an alibi? On September 26th, Michelle's former on-again, off-again boyfriend took the stand and testified that jealousy, at least on Scott's part, was never an issue in his relationship with Michelle, since he never really considered Kent a rival.
Was there anything that you observed, saw, that led you to believe that Mr. Lepping was a problem for you and Michelle getting together? No.
Next, Scott's testimony laid the groundwork for the prosecution's effort to make jurors forget the successful woman Michelle had become. Instead, prosecutors wanted the jury to focus on the woman from 1996. The woman they said was a greedy seductress who preyed upon a string of lonely men.
Scott was another one of the guys that was just thought he was in love with her, thought he was crazy about her, sort of captivated by her. His words were, "I'm lucky that I got out of it."
And central to the prosecution's case was the setting where Michelle had met all three men, the Great Alaskan Bush Company.
We thought it was very important that the jury understand she worked at the Bush Company and that's where she met people.
It was something that prior to going to trial, the defense had done their best to suppress.
The defense asked the judge to preclude the state from putting on any evidence as to where she worked.
A defense attorney gave this real elaborate speech about women are either Madonnas or whores. There's no in between. And if you allow Michelle to be referred to as a stripper, she will automatically be considered a whore.
The judge, however, had overruled the defense's request.
It was simply a fact, and that's where she worked, and those were the circumstances, and there were certain things that legitimately you can infer from those circumstances.
But was murder one of them?
He did use her job as a stripper to explain the lengths someone would go to for money, and money was her goal in the strip club, and the prosecution portrayed it as money was her goal for this killing.
The defense, when they started presenting their case on October 11th, painted a totally different picture of Michelle. Taking the stand, husband Colin testified that while Michelle may have been a stripper when she met Kent Leppink, the woman he knew was a saint.
It kills me that in their hearts, that they think Michelle had anything to do with that, because I know from the bottom of my heart and soul that she did not.
What's more, Colin testified that Michelle had admitted to her stripping past not long after they'd met. And together, they'd put her previous life behind them.
Colin knew that she was an exotic dancer in Alaska. That was not an issue for him.
So who did kill Kent Leppink? The defense offered several alternatives.
The defense had said at one point that Carlin acted alone over jealousy.
They also suggested that Kent had somehow killed himself.
The defense did bring up the possibility of a suicide, that he had staged his own death.
Some other theories that were that he had paid somebody to kill him.
It was a possibility that the defense claimed might be buried in the fine print of Kent's last letter.
That's a very odd letter. It's a letter that suggests to some, when you read it, that he wanted to set people up.
There's not one bit of evidence that Michelle in any way wanted it to happen or knew that it was going to happen.
And the proof, according to the defense, had been caught on tape. On October 15th, the defense rested their case by playing a recording for the jury. It was the tape state troopers had made 11 years earlier, moments after telling Michelle Kent had been murdered.
His body was stoned, and that's why we're here.
Coming up, a verdict and more tears.
We cried. We just cried. I was shaking so hard he was just holding me for all he was worth.
On October 22, 2007, Michelle Linehan sat in an Alaska courtroom. Accused of the 1996 murder of Kent Leppink, she calmly awaited the jury's verdict. She had reason to be confident.
There was a lot of hearsay in this case, a lot of speculation in this case, a lot of stitching together of details with hypotheses.
When the foreman rose to read the verdict, it was almost too much for Kent's mom to take.
The assistant to our prosecutor, I was shaking so hard he was just holding me for all he was worth.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Michelle K. Linehan, guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment.
There was a faint little gasp, but Michelle, she looked just dead ahead.
Maybe she was in shock. Husband Colin certainly was.
He just looked, like he'd just been hit by a train. You couldn't help but...
99 years in prison. And Michelle, convicted of putting John up to the crime? At her sentencing on April 2nd, she finally spoke in court. Prosecutors had claimed she could talk a man into murder. Could she sway the judge's decision?
I am not the monster
that the paint that has been painted by the prosecution more than a decade ago, I made the choice to work at the Bush Company. While working there, I made poor choices. I accepted gifts and money from Kent Lepink.
Michelle was convicted because she was a stripper. They just figured she was a manipulative stripper, and that's what they do.
I think it's really unfortunate what a young girl at 19 did for a year and a half of her life and be judged by that.
But as the judge handed down his sentence, he made one thing clear. He believed that Michelle had not only taken Kent Lepink's money, she'd also taken his life.
I can find no distinction between the puppet who pulls the trigger and the puppeteer who pulls the strings. I sentence Ms. Linehan to 99 years.